Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on NimbuScan. My name's Wayne Harvey, and I'm a business consultant here with Nimbus Software. I've been with the company for about 20 years, and I work with our clients doing business analysis type work and designing solutions for our customers. Joining us today, we've also got Gail, our General Manager. She's just given you a wave there. Just to outline what we want to achieve today, we're going to give you a demo of NimbuScan, showing you how we get invoices into the system, the approval workflow, approval process and workflow, how we post invoices and how we can view invoices from within the Nimbus database. Then we'll have a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions as we go through the demo, please type them into the chat. And after we've finished the demo, Gail will run through those questions and we'll give you some answers. And then finally, we'll have a wrap up from Gail. So just to give you a brief overview of NimbuScan, it's our smart and simple invoice processing tool that scans your supplier's invoices. It submits them to a workflow for cost allocation review, and then forwards the invoice to the correct person in your organisation to approve. And once approved, allows the invoice to be posted through to the job, the GL, and creditors. Some of the key benefits of using NimbuScan is it's convenient and paperless. So as I said before, the suppliers can email your invoices directly into the system. The great thing with that is once they're in the system, they're able to be viewed and see where their status is at. You can also view and approve invoices at any time from anywhere, and we'll go through that process as part of the demo. It speeds things up. So the OCR recognition automates data entry, so you get invoices into the system faster. And the key thing, it keeps you organised. You never lose track of an invoice. So once it's in the system, it's there. You don't have to faff around looking for an invoice, seeing whether or not you've received it or whose desk it might be sitting on. It's all available at a glance in NimbuScan. And the automated process keeps your payables flowing. So the invoices are coming in, they're being approved and being posted through to the jobs on a timely manner. So let's have a look at NimbuScan. When we install NimbuScan onto a database, we create a new menu. You can see here called NimbuScan. I'll just expand that out. And there's a small number of items there. The first three, dashboard, approval queue, and invoices, I'll cover those off as we go through the demo. I'll just touch on the second three, approval limits, proxies, and synchronizing creditors. So with approval limits, we can set these up directly in NimbuScan, or we can use information that we've got in Nimbus to determine who the approver is. So if we look here at the second line on this report here, we can see that Michelle's been set up as a designated approver for overhead invoices up to $100,000. So that means any overhead invoice that comes in under $100,000 will go through to Michelle for approval. If you look at the other approval lines there, you'll see there's no designated person. That means we're getting the information out of Nimbus. So we have the ability to configure so that we can use information in Nimbus to send the invoice to the correct person for approval. So for example, it might go to the job supervisor if that's what you want to happen, or some of our customers have a field on their purchase order to say who it's being ordered for, and that person could be the person that the invoice gets sent to. So we set this up according to your business rules. Approval proxies, this is a function where you can set up a proxy if one of your approvers is going away for a period of time. So you'll see here we've got a user, Michelle, and she's actually been away for a long time. We're looking at that from the 21st of September 21 through to tomorrow. Now I've set that up because in this demo database, Michelle is set up as the approver. but I want them to come through to me today while I'm doing the demo. So we've got a proxy in place there. That means any invoice that's been submitted today will come through to Wayne for approval. The other menu option we've got here is Synchronize Creditors. So the standard process is that we have an overnight sync between the Nimbus database and NimbuScan in the cloud. So there's always an up-to-date update information for your creditors up there in the cloud. But sometimes you might want to set a creditor up today immediately so that you can process an invoice through NimbuScan. So if you do that, you set the creditor up in Nimbus, come into this menu option here, and you can hit the sync button, and that sends up updated creditor information through to NimbuScan so that you can process invoices. Okay, now we'll put some invoices through the workflow. So the first menu option we've got here is dashboard. Now this dashboard is effectively the accounts payable administrator's homepage, if you like. So it shows them exactly what's going on within NimbuScan. So the top row of tiles are effectively the workflow for processing invoices. So we'll just quickly run across those. The first tile, the scanning queue, that shows whether or not we've got any invoices up in the NimbuScan cloud currently being scanned and being recognised. Normally you don't really need to do anything with this tile. You'll see things pop in there and then they'll just pop across to the next tile, unsubmitted invoices. So the unsubmitted invoices are invoices that have been scanned and recognised and they're now ready to be processed. So this is where we look at the cost allocation on that invoice and check everything's okay. And then if everything's okay, we submit it for approval. So then the invoice would jump across from the unsubmitted invoices tile to the submitted invoices tile. So this is a tile that summarises invoices that are out with the approvers for approval, but they haven't yet approved them. Once they've approved them, they jump across to approved post. And that means they've been approved, and then we can now post them through to the general ledger, to the jobs, and through to creditors. And finally, the last tile on the top row is posted invoices. So that there shows everything that's been posted through the system. So you could come to this tile, click on it, and go searching for invoices to see when they were approved, who they were approved by, and that sort of information. The bottom tile is, I guess, tiles that show where there's some sort of action required. So we'll touch on some of those as we go through the demo. But obviously, say unprocessed invoices, this will be where an invoice hasn't been able to be scanned or an attachment hasn't able to be scanned. So it'll pop up down there and someone needs to have a look at it, see what's going on, may need to contact Nimbus or may be able to resolve it themselves. And I'll talk about the rest as we go through the demo. Just while we're So how your suppliers get the invoices into NimbuScan is there's a predetermined email address set up. In this case here, I'm sending them into invoices at nimbusmarketingdemo.nimbus.co.nz. And we've got to attach an attachment there. So I'm just going to send that email in to NimbuScan. And if we keep an eye on that scanning queue tile, what we should see is that one invoice is being received and it will be being recognised. So that's how quickly that they're received into the NimbuScan cloud and processing starts. So while that's happening, we'll jump across to the unsubmitted invoices tile. So this is an invoice that's been scanned and it's now ready for us to process. Click on the tile. That gives us a list of the invoices that's sitting at the status. Click on that. and we come to this page. So obviously on the left-hand side there, we've got an image of the invoice that's been scanned. And on the right-hand side, we can see information that's been picked up from that document and put into fields in NimbuScan. So for example, we can see the date, the invoice date, 15th of February. And if we click on that, we can see where the information's come from on the document. The order number similarly comes from there. Now, one of the cool things with NimbuScan is that if one of these fields hasn't been populated, we've got this use for training function up here. So if for example, the order number hadn't been picked up from the document, we can click on the field here, then come across to the field on the document and tick this box used for training. And when we process this invoice, that information will be stored and used for next time an invoice comes in from Nelson City Council. So usually the scanning success rate is pretty high, but if there's something that it can't recognise, you can continue to keep training NimbuScan as you go about your workflow. So the next thing we need to do before we can submit an invoice for approval is just check the cost allocation. So you can see here at the moment, the status is that it's uncosted. So we click here on this cost allocation button. And this opens up a grid and it brings through the information that's from the purchase order. So very similar to the direct invoice grid that you're possibly using at the moment to enter in invoices. Opens up with what's on the purchase order. We automatically assume that what you've ordered, I'll just widen this field here, sorry. We automatically assume that the quantity received is what you've ordered, and we automatically assume that the actual cost is what the expected cost was. So when we look at this grid allocation down here, we can see that the cost has actually been allocated as $630. But the invoice, we've got a warning up here, the invoice is only $600. So that's because we've got a partial receipt of one of the items that we ordered. So if we look at the invoice, we can see here that we've got 18 PDL 16Bs, but we actually ordered 20 of them. So if we change the quantity on this invoice to 18 and hit enter, hopefully if I've done my calculations correctly, we've now got $600 of costs allocated and the error's gone away or the warning's gone away up here, and we're now at a costed status. So once we're at a costed status, we can actually submit the invoice for approval. I just want to talk about the grid down here a little bit, and that one of the things that's a lot better than our current purchase order grid is that we can make it bigger if there's lots of things down there. And it's a bit like a web report that you'll be familiar with. So you can filter if there's lots of items on here, you can filter, you can sort, and do all that kind of stuff that you would be able to do in a web report. So it makes it much easier to find stuff if you've got a lot of items on the purchase order grid. Just also want to touch on this correspondence button down here. So one of the cool things with NimbuScan is the email tracking functionality. So that's a part of the new Nimbus next generation platform technology where we can track email. So you'll probably see more of that in the future as we roll out new products. So what we can do here, if I've got a query about this invoice, rather than whizzing into Outlook and sending an email, I'd click on the email button up here. Type in who I'm going to send it to. In this case, I want to send it to myself, but I can send a message that says, hey, something like that. There's a PDF automatically attached, and send that off. Now, if we look at the correspondence button down here, we can see there's actually been 2 emails relating to this invoice so far. One is the original email that came in. So if I click on that, that would show you the email that came in from your supplier and any information that they might have had on it. But the one that I just sent here is, hey Wayne, did you get these items? So that's tagged against this invoice. And then if I replied to that email, the reply would also be tagged here. So it's a really cool way of just tracking the correspondence and queries relating to an invoice. Okay, now assuming everything's okay, which it is, we've got it fully costed, we want to submit that for approval. So we just click on this button here, submit. Now what we should see here is that one invoice. We've now got two unsubmitted because the one that was in the scanning queue has come across, and the one that we've just submitted has moved across from unsubmitted to submitted invoices. So approving of invoices, there's a couple of ways that this can happen. If you're an approver and you're working in the back office, then we've got this approval queue menu option here. So if I click on that, what we'll see is I've got two invoices here to approve. I'll just click on the second one, which is the one that we've just processed. And you can see here, I've basically got the same information that was presented before. So I can see a PDF or an image of the invoice. I can see the allocation data here, and I can also see the cost allocation grid. So if I'm happy with that and I want to confirm that it's to go to job 1115 and everything looks okay, I just click this approve button up the top here and it'll be ready to be posted. Now, if I've got a problem with it, I don't want to approve it for whatever reason, then I'll click the reject button. I might actually put, hey, could you please cost this to job number 1116, for example, something like that. Okay, so the approval has been declined. And what we're going to do is go back to our dashboard. So there's no invoices out there being submitted now, but it's jumped down to this rejected invoices tile. So again, this is one of these action required tiles where the accounts payable administrator would monitor what's going on here. So same action as with the other tiles, click on it, see the invoice. They can see the message that I put on it. They can take the appropriate action and then they can resubmit it back in for approval. Okay, so we'll just now pick up the second invoice that I've got here. And we'll open up the cost allocation grid. Form has errors. So we've got this issue over here. We've scanned the order number as 2362. NimbuScan's telling us that we've got a problem. So we'll click in here. And it looks like when I made up the invoice that I put 2362 in there and the purchase order should have been 2326. So we select the correct purchase order. The error now goes away. Show the cost allocation. Now this is a slightly different grid to what we saw before. So this is an overhead order. So we can see here that it was an overhead order that was ordered to the GL account 8040900 rubbish disposal. Again, it's brought through the purchase order lines. It's assumed that we've got what we ordered and the expected cost. So this is, in this case here, the $600 is what we've got on the cost allocation. $600 is what we've got on the invoice. So we're all happy about that, and we click the submit button. Again, it jumps off this unsubmitted invoices tile to submitted invoices. Now, what I'm just going to show you here is each time an invoice is submitted for approval, an email is sent to the approver letting them know that they've got an invoice to approve. So I'll just grab that. So this is what I receive as an email. An invoice has been submitted for your approval. I've got the PDF of the invoice attached, got some summary information about the invoice here, and I've got the cost allocation grid. So I could be sitting out in the field on my mobile phone, see this come up. Yep, I'm happy with everything here. You'll see down here that if I reply with the first word approve or reject, then that's going to approve or reject the document via email. So we'll click on reply. And I'll just type in approve. That's popped up on another screen and send that back. Close that one down. See, it goes off there and it's approved to post. Now, the next step is that the accounts payable administrator will be looking at this tile approved to post and saying that during the day, hopefully, these invoices that have been signed off by the approvers and they're ready to post. So they'll click on this review and post link here. You won't normally get that box. Sign in, and that shows the invoices that are ready to post. The reason why we've got this report here is that we want to show whether there's going to be any issues when you click the post button. So some of the potential things that can happen is that when the invoice came in, the job was opened and someone's now closed it. So we want to show you on this report here that the job is closed and you can't post to it. Or it might have an X status and you can't post to a job that's got an X status, or there might be some GL integrations missing if you've set up a new stock group or a new profit center or that kind of thing. So the whole idea of coming to this report first is that you can see that everything that's been approved is going to go through the posting process. So we click on the post valid invoices button. That all goes nice and clean. We come back to the dashboard and that goes back to 0. So what we're going to see during the day, obviously, is new invoices coming into the scanning queue and jumping across through the workflow through to posted invoices. Once it's been posted, then you can see that invoice from other areas within Nimbus. So if we just go now to our creditors account history, and if we look at some of the invoices that have come in, so the one we just processed was this 2326 invoice. You can see here there's a link view invoice. So if it has come in through NimbuScan, the PDF of the document has been put into the Nimbus content store, and then we can link to that from various parts within Nimbus. So if we click on that view invoice, we see the PDF there. So that makes it really easy for people right across the information organisation to see an invoice rather than having to get someone to hunt out a piece of paper. Just a couple of other things just to touch on here in these bottom tiles. So invalid invoices, that is there so that if an invoice is received into the NimbuScan workflow and it turns out that it's not an invoice that needs to be paid for by the company, I don't know, maybe if it was a privately owned business, the directors may have purchased something the supplier's emailed the invoice in, so it's in the system and it needs to be tracked. Then we, instead of approving it, or rather submitting it for approval, we can mark it as invalid and put a comment on it, and it will turn up in this Invalid Invoices tile down here. So we've still got a tracking of what's going on there. Failed to post is if in the unlikely event something didn't post, it will turn up down in this failed to post tile here, and you'd need to talk to Nimbus so that we can have a look at it and see what the reason was for that. The emails to review tile is something that we built based on feedback we had with other integrations that we'd done with scanning software. So sometimes a supplier might send a general query to you to the scanning email address. So they flick an email through saying, hey guys, we noticed you haven't paid this invoice. Is there a problem? Something like that. In some systems that goes into a big black hole. So what we've got is this email to review tile. So if there's nothing to scan, then the email turns up in this tile here. And again, the accounts payable person can have a look at what's in that behind that tile and take appropriate action. So that's pretty much NimbuScan workflow. I guess some of the feedback that we've had from our customers that they've had some real savings out of it. So obviously one of the key things is that once an invoice comes into the system, it's always available. So we can click on the All Invoices tile. Here's all the invoices here. We can click and see the same information that we've been seeing before. But we can also see workflow information. So if I scroll out to the side here, we can see, for example, this one here, that the workflow last action was approved and it was me. So you pretty much can see where things are at all times. The other thing is obviously you don't have to hunt around looking for paper invoices. So as I showed you before, from various parts in Nimbus, you can actually drill down and see those invoice documents. And the other piece of feedback that we have had from customers that have used scanning is that they spend less time trying to reconcile their customer supplier statements when they come through at month end, because the invoices are in the system, then they're being tracked, and you can chase people up to get them approved and posted and all that kind of stuff. It just saves a lot of time in reconciling things at the end of the month.
I'd like to thank you for your attendance. We'll see you at the next webinar.